Jennifer. So welcome, everybody. I'm so happy to see you. Thank you for making time in your busy day, whether you're here live with us or you're watching this recording. We're just so happy that you are going to spend some time with us at GPS Group Peer Support. I'm Liz Friedman. I am the CEO of GPS, and I can't think of a more important thing to be doing right now than to be talking about how we are going to expand and increase access to mental health resources and social support for our beloved Hispanic community across the United States, and of course, as well internationally, if you're coming to us outside of the United States. We will be focusing a lot of our time together thinking about the conditions inside the United States right now, as we all understand them to be very fraught right now for the Latino and Hispanic communities. In fact, some might even say perilous. It's been a very difficult time, which is, of course, an excruciating understatement for what we've been seeing and what many of us have been experiencing directly in our own communities and in our own families. So I want to welcome you. And for those of us who this issue is touching very, very directly, I just want to give you a space and a place to be able to take a breath, because it has felt very brutal and is very brutal out there these days. The work that we are doing at GPS with the Latino community, we have been doing for a long time. Hand in hand, Nallely Willis, our program director, who will introduce herself in a moment. Nallely, why don't you go ahead and wave so people see and say hello, please.
Hi, hola. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for being here today. My name is Nallely Willis, and I am an immigrant from Mexico. I'm GPS program director, and it's such an honor to be here with Liz, who is such a great advocate, not only for me, but for my people. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Nallely. I'll hand the microphone to you in just another slide or two, so you can share your immense expertise and perspective on what we're seeing in the Latino community, and also how, most importantly, from our perspective, how GPS can help address some of the really critical issues that are happening right now. We entitled this webinar Breaking Barriers, providing GPS trauma-informed peer support to the Hispanic community, because we believe that we have a unique resource that we really can bring to start to address or continue to address the very critical mental health impact that everything else that we are experiencing is having on our beloved Latino community. We have been doing this work, as I said, for a long time, with many, many diverse communities, with immigrants and refugees within the United States, as well as immigrant populations. We've been providing this work in languages, in addition to English, Spanish. We've worked with Afghan refugees and Dari and Pashto, with Chinese immigrants in Mandarin, with Somalian refugees, and on and on and on. So we've been very committed to ensuring that populations, people, communities that do not have easy access to mental health resources are able to get them in their language by people who look like them and are of them and reflect them, who understand their values and their concerns, and perhaps live the same exact lived experiences, so that we can really provide the opportunity to be in a connected, deeply compassionate environment to talk about the realities that are facing us, whatever they are, for whatever population and community. Our foundation is creating courageous spaces where we can bring our evidence and trauma-informed lens, teach people, both who have clinical expertise and lived experience, how to bring group therapeutic support online or in person to communities where they need it, when they need it, and how they need it. We know that there are many, many things in our world that we can't change. And we are in the middle of, or the beginning of, a time where, or even may I say, a continuation, right, of a time where so many people have been targeted and mistreated. And we are seeing that accelerate. We are seeing it blatantly allowed and encouraged. And there's never been a time that's more important for us to bring people together so that they can find they can find their courage. We all can find our own courage to be able to face many things that we may not be able to change, but still move forward with integrity and also be able to assess what we can change and what we can't change. Because I think that even in a moment like this, it's hard to know what we can change and what we can't. And we certainly aren't going to throw in the towel. We're not going to give up on fighting for what we know is right for all people, what is fair and what is just. And we want to give the communities that we love, that we serve, every resource that we can so that they can thrive. Nallely, I'm gonna pass it to you.
Thank you, Liz, and thank you for your beautiful words about our community. And I'm so glad you are here today with us as we take action in addressing all the impact and regarding the immigration crisis that we're facing right now. And I just want to take a pause here. GPS has done this work before, and we had worked along with our team of facilitators to not only speak about the issues and what's going on, what's hard for all of us in our community, but we are also taking action as a team, as a family here at GPS. And GPS work is centered around making sure that all individuals, especially those in underserved communities, feel heard, seen, supported, and empowered. And this is what we're here today, and this is why we are doing what we're doing. And our mission is to break barriers, challenges, the stigma, and ensure that everyone has access to the care and the resources they deserve. And we are presenting this wonderful tool, this wonderful model for you to use so we can all support each other during what's going on. So we're going to go over some of the realities for the Hispanic community, some of the barriers and the challenges we face as Latinos, as immigrants in the United States. I know we all know these issues, we know the barriers, we have experienced them, we have lived them and seen them in person, but we're going to mention them and then tell you how we are feeling in those gaps. How can you fill in those gaps in our resources out there and the way we support our people? We also know, I know, that the issues, the challenges, the barriers, the gaps that we're going to mention today are not specifically to the Latino community. They are happening in many other communities, and I just want to acknowledge that for now. So some of the realities for the Hispanic community, not only in the US, but in many other places, is the fear and the instability. We know that many Latino or immigrant families live in constant fear due to deportation policies, legal uncertainty. They don't know what's coming. We don't know the future, it's unknown. And family separation may be our biggest fear and concern right now. The fear leads to avoidance of hospitals. We may not be getting the support we need, the healthcare services that we need. We may be afraid to go to school, to work, and the limited opportunities that we get. It's a barrier right now. The blaming unfairly, the scapegoating, and economic exploitation. We know that's been going on for a while. Latino and immigrant individuals had been wrongly blamed for things. We get jobs and we get low wage and unsafe working conditions. And that's another barrier for our community right now. Social isolation and mental health issues. We know that we are living in survival mode, and that increases chronic stress, leading into anxiety, depression, PTSD, and maybe even substance use. The constant pressure of discrimination and the financial insecurity, the lack of resources for our community are also causing the mental health issues in our people. So feelings of isolation grow as individuals and families from social support, and a lot of us use it as a protection mechanism. We isolate ourselves, we separate from people so we can feel safer because it's hard to trust people out there, and we all know that. We don't know who to trust these days, and that's a reality. That's a barrier to access care. The generational and historical trauma. And this is really true about us. We carry a lot of trauma, the historical trauma from colonialism, the forced displacement, the restrictive immigration policies. And up until this day, it continues to be a reality for all of us. The cultural stigma, there's a lot of stigma around mental health in our community, about asking for help, about accepting the help, even if it's available for us. It's so hard for us to take that help. And we hear a lot of judgmental comments about, our community getting or trying to get the help. So that's another reality for our community. Then the lack of access to mental health care. And it's not only the access, but it's also the awareness. There's lack of awareness. There may be lack of knowledge on how to address mental health, where to get the support, what's the support that is appropriate for us, culturally speaking, the language barriers, the financial barriers, systemic discrimination that's still happening, and it may be getting worse or feeling worse or stronger these days. And that really makes it difficult and nearly impossible for our community to access mental health care. And many of the available services out there or resources fail to be culturally responsive. That's a reality for us. We may not find providers who speak like us, who sound like us, who understand where are we coming from every time we explain something that we feel or that we fear about. And that's a challenge. It's really a challenge to find someone who really gets us, who gets our language, to get how we feel, how we laugh, how we um, worship. That's really limiting these days. Growing crisis without intervention. This is huge. Without systemic action and culturally competent solutions, mental health struggles will continue to grow. And we know this is true, especially for those of you who are working in community programs and community resources, helping people one on one. This is maybe one of our biggest problems right now. We know that fear, isolation, and the trauma are and the stress are causing for people to go through life with untreated mental health disorders without getting the support they need if they're using substances. And we must prioritize solutions that address the structural barriers, create safe spaces, and ensure access to mental health care. It's easy for everyone in our communities. And I know we're gonna get there in just a little bit, but we're gonna tell you how to do it. And it's so easy, and we have all the tools for you guys here at GPS. So don't worry, buckle up, because we are going on here. So we can go to the next slide, if that's okay, please. Okay, and again, we're gonna go through cultural barriers to mental health care. I know I mentioned some, and I know we know this, and I know this is not something that you're hearing for the first time. So please bear with us as we just mention them and acknowledge them before we go into the solutions. So cultural expectations and gender roles. We keep hearing men don't cry, men have to be strong, los hombres no lloran, o los hombres no deben llorar, right? We keep hearing that showing any sign of weakness may make us feel, or seem weak in our communities. Latina women who have to take care of everyone else before themselves, we see this a lot in our culture, and people keep saying, well, you're not supposed to feel depressed, you're not supposed to feel sad, you're not supposed to complain, right? Or asking, it's a sign of complaining or weakness. And this is a barrier, because then women feel that they're not allowed to ask for help, they're not allowed to struggle, they're not allowed to feel sad or depressed. And this is how people just stay away from getting the support they need. The mental health struggles are often kept private or silenced, and this is how women and men and women suffer in silence, and how all the emotions just bottled up, and things get a lot worse for all of us in mental health. Stigma and shame. We keep hearing la ropa sucia se lava en casa, wash your dirty laundry at home. Si no hablamos de eso, entonces no sucedió. Like, if we don't speak about that, then it never happened. Silence around mental health reinforces denial and avoidance. And I know that can be seen as a protection mechanism, and it's maybe a protection mechanism that has worked for a lot of us, especially when we come from our home countries to the US and we just have to survive. We can't live, we survive, so we can keep going. And but at the end of the day, that's causing a lot of mental and emotional issues in our community. The gaps in mental health understanding. Está loca, she's crazy. Like, a lot of the people providing support and resources out there jump into conclusions because they don't understand. We don't have enough awareness, we don't have enough education out there. Religious and spiritual beliefs. We keep hearing, keep praying, pray harder. You may not be praying the right way. Reza más y se te pasará, right? And that's obviously that's important, and that's really powerful, but it's not the reason for us to be struggling. The lack of trust and fear of authorities. This one, it's huge, and it's also huge for me. The fear of the authorities prevents us from seeking support and the help we need and the help we deserve. If we say how we really feel, someone may take our children away from us. That's our first thought when we are parents, when we are mothers. Many of us have experienced broken trust with systems that promise to help us and cause harm instead. A lot of us have experienced the system has failed us when they were supposed to be the ones supporting us and helping us. A lot of us had experienced that. I experienced it with my child in a hospital. They separated me from him, thinking that I was doing something wrong, or drinking something or consuming something while breastfeeding, and it wasn't the case. And it was just because I'm a Latina and I have a strong accent. So that's still happening up until today. And that's why we stay silent, and that's why we don't share all of our symptoms or everything that we're feeling in doctor's appointments. We don't go to clinics to ask for help. We don't go to maybe a provider the first time to get the help. We go to places where we feel that we can trust, like a support group, with someone who is part of our community, with someone who is part of our people. And a lot of us as Latinos, as immigrants, and also other populations, we go on survival mode and crisis overload. Solo tengo tiempo para trabajar y sobrevivir, which means we only have time, or I only have time to work and survive. When daily survival is uncertain, mental health takes a back seat, and it's not a priority anymore. The constant fear of deportation, family separation, losing our jobs, which is happening a lot to everyone. It doesn't matter who you are, your skin color, where are you from? People are losing their jobs and their financial stability. They're losing benefits. Also, discrimination makes it really difficult to do anything, to take any step, to accept any help, any resource. And a lot of us feel that there's no time for therapy. A lot of us have more than 2 jobs. And I know that about our community. We work, we come to this country to take advantage of all the opportunities we can, so we can save, so we can afford things, so so we can provide for our families, and still it's not enough sometimes. And we don't have time to live, we survive. That's, I know that's really heavy, but it's true about us. The emotional distress is often ignored and pushed aside until it becomes a bigger issue for all of us. We're gonna keep going here so we can make the most out of our time together. But we're gonna go over what we know is true about the Latino community, the Latino people. We know, and if we can go to the next slide.
Nallely, can I just add one thing here? Would that be
Yes,
okay?
please. Sure. Yeah. Please
I
go ahead.
I mean, I just want to say, and I just want to be fully transparent. These slides that we're sharing, very similar to what we would have shared 6 months ago or 2 years ago or 5 years ago. And yet they resonate very, very deeply and differently in this moment. And what we know is that people, I mean, truly are in survival mode. They are truly trying to ensure that their families do not come to harm. They are truly trying to protect those people who may be more vulnerable, right? In our own families, in your families, and in the families that we serve. And it is very hard to pay attention to mental health concerns when we're trying to survive. It's often what gets pushed to the side, as you just so eloquently said, Nallely. And I just want to emphasize that because my perspective, our perspective at GPS is we've got to get mental health resource in there anyway. And we may need to do it creatively. We may need to do it through really different pathways than we've ever done it before. We may need to build new relationships and new partnerships at GPS. And you've said this already, Nallely, we're just talking about giving our work away for free because the moment calls for that. Like we just have to do what we have to do to ensure that people have the support that they need to be able to survive in these times and under these circumstances. So Nallely, thank you so much for saying all that you just shared. It is heavy. It is a lot. I know that it's not just abstract concepts. It's like in here for us. It's what we're living day by day. It's what we're seeing. It's what's breaking our hearts right in this moment. So it's hard. It's hard things to say. And I'm really glad that from here we're going to start to pivot to talk about what's also true, what's deeply true about Latino people at the heart, right? At the essence of Latino community. So let me pass it. I think I'm passing it back to you, Nallely, as I go to the next slide.
Thank you. Yes. There's a lot that is true about us, and not everything it's negative. Not everything it's bad. What we know it's true about Latino people, about our community, about immigrants, about everyone who is representing diversity in this country and in this world is that Latino community is built on connection. We heal in community, we feel in community, we go through a lot of things in community, and we see it all the time. Every time there's a disaster somewhere, every time someone's suffering somewhere, Latinos and immigrants get together and go to the rescue. They take action, they support, they come in and just offer help without expecting anything in return. We are resilient, we are a community that is often facing barriers. We are often facing attacks. We are often facing all kinds of gaps, but still we show up. And the GPS model really aligns with these values. The GPS model provides a culturally responsive trauma-informed peer support. We ensure that no one faces challenges alone. And that's one of the things of many that I have learned with the GPS model. The first moment I experienced a support group in a training, I knew that I wasn't alone. I knew that I didn't have to face everything that I was facing and everything that I was holding alone. And that really gave me hope to keep going. And I do want to share that with all of you and have you experience that and have you also replicate that in your communities. GPS really gives you that boomerang effect. We're giving to the community, we're helping, we're supporting, we're filling in gaps, but we're also receiving as facilitators, as providers, as community leaders. We know that GPS it's not only cultural co-created, but it also creates safe, non-judgmental spaces where Latinos can share experiences and receive the support from trained facilitators from the same community. And we're gonna hear more about this a little later, but I do want to appreciate and thank Liz and Annette Sykan, GPS co-founder, for everything they had been doing since they started GPS. The first time I experienced the model, I thought a Latina had made the model because it felt so close to me and it just got so in deep into my heart that I was like, whoa, this is something. So we're gonna keep going and we're gonna keep mentioning what we know is true about the Latino people, which really align with the GPS principles. And it's a section in our model that hopefully you get to learn when you join us in a training or a support group. We're gonna go through principles. We carry strength and resilience. We come from generations of survivors, fighters, and community builders. We have overcome struggles before, and we will continue to rise. These quotes really reflect the journey of many immigrants, not only this year, but along the years. One of hope, perseverance, and strength. And this quote really speaks about the reality of facing the fear and discrimination and the systemic barriers, and yet refusing to be defined or limited by them. Yeah. And I know, and we know, immigrants do way more than just surviving. We're contributing. We are creating entire communities. And our story is one story of resilience and determination. Okay, we're gonna go to the next one. Our well-being matters. We can't run on empty and still care for our families, children, and communities. When we care for ourselves, we build the strength to uplift other people or others. Can I go to the next one? We deserve safety and stability. We have the right to live without fear of discrimination, deportation, or separation. We are not a burden. We contribute, build, and enrich the places we call home. And we have the right to live without fear of discrimination. We do have that right. Okay. We are not alone. We belong to a strong and supportive community. Our struggles are shared, and so are our victories. There are people who care about us and want to see us thrive. And that's really true. I'm gonna pass it to you, Liz. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Nallely. I obviously, or maybe not obviously, I'm not Latina. I'm gonna say this still though with a we, us, to hold the community. So I hope that'll be comfortable to you. Fear will not define us. We refuse to let fear keep us silent, isolated, or ashamed. We have the right to seek help, speak out, and demand respect. We are connected to one another and to all people. We are not alone. Our struggle is shared, and when we rise together. A better future for us is a better future for everyone. I'm just going to pause for a second because when you were saying these, Nallely, I started to tear up because I just wish we could, gather everybody in our arms and be able to say this, because obviously this is not what the world is saying, right? This is not what the federal government and Trump's administration is saying at all right now. And yet this is what people need to hear, what they need to remember, what they need to know that the majority of people believe is true, even if we're not the majority that has power right now at the federal level. And this needs to be said over and over and over again to each one of us. Our love for our children is unwavering. Our protection is fierce. Our determination to see them thrive is unbreakable. Despite fear and hardship, we teach them to be proud of who they are, fight for their futures, and create a sense of home and belonging no matter where we are. We are courageous. Nellie, you say this one. I want you to say this
one. Great. We are courageous. We gave up everything we knew and risked everything we had because we believe in something better for ourselves, our families, and our communities. We work hard every day and are the economic backbone of this country. We deserve safety, security, and the chance to build a good life. We believe so here, and I hope you do too. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Nallely. I wanted to hear your voice say that. One of the things that's built right into the very fiber of the way that we've built the GPS support group model is we don't ever shy away from saying the hard things. We don't sugarcoat things. We say it the way it is because, quite frankly, the people coming to groups, they already know that. They're living it. We're not going to do them any good by pretending things aren't the way that they are. In fact, it can give us all relief to actually have a place to say it out loud. But we don't want to leave people just in that place. We want to say what's also true, what perhaps the world isn't reflecting, or the systems aren't showing us, or our experience, doesn't seem evident through our experience. But this is what is fundamentally true. This is where we, anchor ourselves, where we put a stake in the ground and we say, there is nothing you can do to take this away from us. We are courageous. We do deserve security, safety, and the chance to build a good life. And this is the very foundation upon which we want to build a GPS emergency support program for the Latino community. We have already been reaching out to funders nationally, and whether or not we get funding, we're going to be doing this work because this is the work that needs to be done right now in this moment. The GPS Emergency Support Program is designed to provide a lifeline for Latino communities facing uncertainty and distress right now in this moment. Many in our community are experiencing isolation, fear. We went over those barriers. The barriers are heavier, harder than they've ever been before. And our support groups are providing that lifeline through free, culturally rooted peer support groups and facilitator training. We create spaces for healing, resilience, and empowerment because connection is what's going to fuel strength. Connection is what's going to fuel hope. And connection, quite frankly, is what is going to fuel revolution. It's what's going to fuel resistance and every other thing that we need to do to make sure that our country starts going in the direction that we all need it to go in and that we know it should be. So this becomes fundamental. And I want to really focus on this. Support groups are one thing. The facilitator training, though, I think is the place where we're really going to be able to come up with some innovative and creative ways to start to bring this work to people. We know that there are many places where Latino community have been seeking out when they've been seeking out and able to mental health care that may not feel available, may not feel accessible, may not feel safe, may not be there anymore as we see budget cuts every day being rolled out. And we're going to have to be innovative. How are we going to get these mental health resources to the communities that need them? Can we do it through the churches? Absolutely. Can we do it through other community entities and organizations? Yes. Do we do it just around the kitchen table for a family? Yes. We do it wherever we can do it. And we're going to need to be flexible, and we're going to need to put these tools into as many people's hands as possible. Because if we, and this is true, again, not as a Latino, but as a person in this moment, and I'm sure this is true for all of you, my daily upset, despair, overwhelm, grief, anger is enormous. And I have to do what I need to do to manage that on a daily basis so that I can take my next step, so that this doesn't stop me, so that I can continue to do whatever good I can do and whatever good, in my case, whatever good GPS can do to help communities that are being targeted. And so I want to be sure that these tools are in as many people's hands as possible so that we can manage those very intense emotional responses, the fear that maybe makes it so that we don't want to leave our home anymore, that we're afraid to go to work, or we're afraid to send our children to school, or whatever it might be. We need to address that so that every person has the resilience in this moment to take whatever is their next courageous step forward. The GPS Emergency Support Program for the Latino community is one, going to train Latino facilitators and those serving the community. Our current goal is to obviously train in both Spanish and English. All of our materials are already available in English. Nallely is an incredible leader, as I know you've already been experiencing. She'll be doing this very same webinar in a couple of hours in Spanish and Espanol. I'm not fluent. I wish I could do it with you, Nallely, but we have other powerful Spanish trainers who will be joining you in our training in Espanol, and we've been doing that for multiple years now, and all of our materials are already available in Spanish. We're making all of our trainings available online for accessibility and also for safety. We've started, a couple of years ago, we started doing work with the Chinese community in China and learned a lot through that, as well as the Muslim, Arab, and Palestinian communities, about when people are afraid to actually even be identified as themselves. And so we have a lot of flexibility in how people can come to our trainings and our groups such that they can feel fully protected and not feel in any way exposed or at risk. And that's very important to us. We're going to be providing our step-by-step curriculum and certification, again, in English and in Espanol. And our goal is 125 leaders nationally over the next 6 months, and then we'll go from there. So we want to be sure that we're expanding these resources, partnering with people embedded in communities where they are already trusted, they are already known, so they can bring mental health resources directly to people, and it doesn't have to go through organizations and systems if that's not safe, or if they no longer feel like they're able to participate there because of the risks in their community and in our country. We will also be launching free GPS support groups. We're hoping to do that in April. That will be both in English and in Spanish. That will be available to anybody nationally, or quite frankly, internationally. But again, we're focusing more in the US right now. And they will be available for people to attend. And again, all of the same thinking about how to ensure individual safety and confidence in our work and in partnering with us will be there. If people are unable to seek services in their community because they are concerned that they will be a risk to them, then we'll be able to make things available to them so they can access them, even if they are at home and feel like they need to isolate more than they would like to, and more than we would like them to. Those will be weekly in Spanish and in English. Every group is a confidential, judgment-free space for emotional support, where people can bring whatever their challenges are, whatever is going on for them. They're online. Hopefully there will be in-person options as well, as makes sense. And our goal is to provide support to 100,000 people. If we train 125 leaders nationally, then we will get there to 100,000 people. Of course, that's still just the tip of the iceberg, right? That's just a very small fraction. And that's what we can wrap our brains around right now, and how we want to move forward to ensure that we do that. And we want to do this hand in hand with you. We want to do this hand in hand with the communities that are already actively supporting the Latino communities in ways that you have figured out to do that with the innovation, creativity, and depth of heart that you have, and commitment to the communities you serve. So the GPS model, we're hoping, will become a lifeline. And we know that many, many people's need this lifeline right now. What is GPS? Just simply, it's a peer-led, trauma-informed, and culturally responsive support model. It integrates evidence-based modalities like cognitive behavioral therapy, interpersonal therapy, motivational interviewing, polyvagal therapy, polyvagal theory, somatic grounding, peer-to-peer support, and many other evidence-based and evidence-informed ways to bring mental health support and care to communities. What we've done is build it in such a way that it's replicable, it's scalable, we can teach it quickly. We just recently did a training where about 50% of the folks attending the training were mental health providers. And I got one of the highest compliments that I've ever received. One of the psychologists who attended the training said to us afterwards, "You're teaching people how to do real therapy and mental health care without the full, 3 years of education or plus, right? More education. Obviously, there's lots of room for mental health professionals. We don't mean to replace that. But what we do know is that in therapeutic groups, we can actually provide mental health resource and support by galvanizing our collective attention with each other and help us to be able to tap into that reserve of resilience and grow it. Resilience, I believe, is a muscle. I don't think any one of us would be at this point unless we had enormous resilience, because I know how difficult our lives have been. I know how difficult my life has been. Nallely, I know how difficult your life has been. And I've listened to so many thousands of people. There's not one person who isn't a miracle, right? And their resilience is enormous. And so in this moment, we want to grow that resilience. We want to just keep growing it and growing it and growing it. Why GPS works? It's culturally competent. It is, I don't even like the word culturally competent. But what I really like is that it's culturally co-created, that the model has been built to be infused with the values, the history, the strengths, the traumas, and the culture and values of the communities that we're serving. That's what's important, including the traditions and the lived experiences. And as lived experience changes, as we are in this new moment, the lived experience that people are having is very intense. And of course, that then triggers a lot. It triggers past trauma, historical trauma, generational trauma. And so it's this moment that is so hard, but it brings up all of these old feelings, experiences, and responses. And we want to help people to be able to have the model be infused with that, so we understand that and we can come to people with truly deep compassion and with an understanding of what their experience is in this moment. We want it to be accessible in the languages that people speak, with people who speak those languages, with people who are from those cultures. We build it so it's safe, it's confidential. We can't make anybody feel safe, right? Like safety is a feeling. It's not a thing that we can do to somebody, is make them safe or feel safe. But we can create an environment that is trauma informed, that understands what the concerns are of the communities that we're serving, and do our very best to go towards that. So that in that way, when they're in that environment, they then can be courageous at their own pace, in the way that makes sense for them, to look at the very difficult experiences and feelings that they're having, again, to be able to tap into that resilience and take whatever's their next step, right? And that's it. That's our foundation. We're strength-based. We center on resilience. We center on empowerment. The truth of the matter is that I don't know if any of us right now know how we're going to get through this time. I don't think we know that. But I am completely clear that together we can find a way forward, together with all of our intelligences coming in a circle and connecting with each other, that we will be able to come up with a new path forward that will keep as many of us safe as is possible under these circumstances and give us the greatest ability to take on the enormous challenges that we're facing in so many ways and in so many places. We're going to be working to remove barriers by creating supportive and empowering community spaces. So again, we want this facilitated by trusted community members. That 125 people that we want to train, we want them in communities, embedded, where they have deep relationships, where they can hold these welcoming spaces and really foster that sense of belonging that is going to be so critical and that is being torn away from so many people right now. We want to respect deeply always the individual wisdom. Our model is built on no advice. There's no pressure. There's no way you have to share in this moment. There's no agenda. People come as they are, where they are, who they are, whatever it is they're feeling, because we fully respect and deeply believe that participants are the experts in their own lives, that people, each one of us, each one of the people that we serve is an expert in their own life. And what we want to do is support them to take on those challenges of their lives. We want to create opportunities where there's peer support so that we can see that shared strength, that we can hear each other's challenges. When I'm sharing my very hard story, or Nallely, you're sharing your very hard story, and the tears are coming down our face, it is not hard at all for me to see the strength in you when you're talking. And when I see that in you, and then it becomes my turn to share, then I think, wow, if Nallely can do it, then maybe I can do it, right? And that's why it's so important to be in group. It's incredibly critical that we actually see each other, hear each other in this place, and have the opportunity to truly be able to acknowledge that I see your strength. I see your beauty. I see your courage. I see your commitment. I see you are never going to stop. You are never going to give up, even though there are moments, right, where we all break down. We all have to lay down our load. We have to have that really heavy cry. But then we get up again. And then we get to see, well, she's doing it. If she can do it, if he can do it, if they can do it, then so can I. As we said already, we're culturally inclusive, right? Honoring diverse traditions, values, and discussions regarding everything that we do in our lives, including our parenting, our family, our community, our work, how we relate to these moments. And one of the things that we really see is that this emotional well-being, even in trying times, is fostered so that we can encourage that healthy emotional regulation and expression. I have found that in really difficult times for myself, that when I'm not sure how I'm going to go forward, sometimes even if I just have a 10-minute cry in the bathroom with the door locked, with the children like banging on the door, but like I'm running the water really loudly, and I have that cry, then after that, I'm able to go on, right? I'm able to have that new thought, that new breath. And that's why we're removing these barriers, so we can really increase that emotional well-being, so that we can get through these times. And of course, one of the other things that we bring into our model, I mentioned somatic grounding. We use grounding practices. And these are skills that we're all going to need to master more and more. If you have a mindfulness practice, you know how critical that is for you. If you have a way that you do stress reduction from running, from dancing, from cooking, from watching funny movies, that is critical in these times. If we use affirmations and remind ourselves, like the principles, about what's true, stick that on our refrigerator and look at that every day instead of the news. Right? If we have somatic awareness and we start to notice like our heart racing, and then we can notice, how do we actually start to self-regulate ourselves? How do we help ourselves to feel grounded in these moments? We are giving really important tools in a time of very high stress. So that is part of what's built into, all of these things are built into the GPS model in this sort of seamless way, so that you learn skills, even though it's not a skill building group per se. It's a connection group. It's about building community. It's about getting to be our real selves. And yet at the end of every group, people walk away having practiced a mindfulness. We don't necessarily call it mindfulness. Having practiced somatic grounding. We don't necessarily call it somatic grounding. And they have more skills to be able to manage and self-regulate when so much is coming at us. Oh, did I miss one? Empowering growth, right? So, and this is really just the final statement here. We're supporting every individual's ability to heal, to thrive, to reach their goals. That's what this is about. It's one of the key reasons that our model does not include advice, and where we do an interruption-free way of sharing, because we truly believe that each person is exactly the right person to lead their family, to think about their life, to take on their next challenges, and that they know how to get help, advice, and we make ourselves available to them. I am here for you after group. I will give you any resource that I have. You come, you ask me, and I will give it to you. The model also seamlessly works with when you do want to do an educational session about, how to advocate for our children in schools in this moment, with the deportation policies that are moving forward. How do we do that? Then that's great. Then you do the all of the group part first, and then you share all of that information after you lead the group experience. So you still can share expertise, important information that people need in this moment to stay safe, to advocate for themselves, and to get their families and their communities the resources that they need. This is beautiful mama with her baby. And I just want to share this quote with you. This model is absolutely incredible and helpful. A beautiful model for supporting the ones that need it most. It felt like it was specially made for our community in our language. This is a participant from the facilitator training for the Hispanic community. This quote means everything to me, because it means that we're doing it right. If the Hispanic and Latino communities feel like this is theirs, feel like this is yours, built for you, then that's the sweet spot. That's exactly where we want it to be. And that's exactly whose hands we want it in. We want it in your hands for your community in this moment, for as many as we can hold. So let me just share with you about how we are going to be doing this, how we're going to be empowering community leaders. Again, our trainings are offered in Spanish and English. They offer informed facilitation skills. We have a certification program, which I haven't spoken about really. There's a step-by-step facilitation manual, both in Spanish and in English. We provide live and on-demand training for accessibility. So that's synchronous and asynchronous, live and recorded. And this program is going to be completely free for healthcare providers, including mental health in Massachusetts, starting in April. We are looking for funding for this to be expanded for free nationally as well. If you have ideas about that, or people you think we should connect with, we'd be very interested in talking with you and hearing about that. If you live in Massachusetts, the time is already now to register for these programs for free and to expand them and bring them to any communities that you know of. This could be any kind of health provider. This program is called Mass Strong. We're providing free training and free CEUs, free webinars and support groups for your organization are available, and resources in English and Spanish for communities in recovery, for new parents, for folks bereaved, for healthcare workers, and more. You can access this through this QR code that you see on the screen right now. You also can access it through a link that we'll put in the chat if we haven't already. And we'll send you this information in a follow-up email So if you're attending this webinar, it means you signed up. It means we'll send you an email tomorrow or in the next couple of days, and we will provide this information to you additionally. So you can share it and you can sign up for programming that we're able to offer. And I just want to really make your minds, what's the word? I just want to really open the lens in terms of who we're talking about, who can run GPS groups, because sometimes we think only those people can run groups, or those people are mental health providers, or those people are trained peer recovery specialists. They can do it. And I really just want to give you a picture of who we are thinking about. Allies, community members, people who care, right? Educators and school counselors can run groups for their parents, for co-teachers, for their students. Faith leaders are a very important group to be outreaching to, because that's often the place where people feel safest and where they're able to share and feel like they're going to be in a protected opportunity to say what's really on their minds. Healthcare workers, of course, all kinds of healthcare workers, labor and workers' rights advocates, who obviously are speaking to many people in this time of distress. It's a great opportunity for them or for people that work with them to have these resources to be able to create more opportunities to support the Latino community. LGBTQIA plus Hispanic leaders obviously are at the intersection of much damaging policy that is coming from the current administration, and we want to make sure that they have all the support that they can have and that they deserve. Mental health professionals, absolutely, of course. Organizers and advocates for asylum-seeking communities are really critical to have these kinds of resources. Parents and caregivers, peer counselors, promotores de salud, community health workers. Community health workers are obviously beloved and trusted members of the Latino community, and they should have these tools in their hands. They would be eligible under the Mass Strong program to be able to receive our training for free. Substance use and recovery advocates as well. So, and you may think of people who I haven't thought of. That's why we're going to email you. That's why you're going to email us back. That's why we're going to engage in conversation. If you have ideas of how to bring this to the Latino community that we haven't covered, we want to hear from you. We want to know what you're thinking and how we can do this most effectively together in partnership. I'm going to pass it back to you, Nallely.
Thank you. And here's a quote that came out of an article that I just wrote not too long ago. I came to this country with hope, but fear, discrimination, and barriers try to break it. Still, I refuse to let fear define my journey. Immigrants don't just survive. We build, we dream, we rise. That is resilience and that is community. And that's also who we are as Latinos. I
Nallely,
know we are,
could you
yes,
do me a favor?
yeah,
Could you say that in Spanish too?
yeah, sure. Hold on, I have it ready for my next webinar. Okay. Vine a este país con esperanza, pero el miedo, la discriminación y las barreras intentaron romperla. Aún así, me niego a dejar que el miedo defina mi camino. Los inmigrantes no solo sobrevivimos, construimos, soñamos y nos levantamos. Esa es la resiliencia, esa es la comunidad y es quien somos. Yeah.
So we've come to the end of our time together. Thank you so much for being with us for this webinar. There's a slide up now in the PowerPoint that shares the facilitator training in English that we'll be doing in April and in Spanish in June with QR codes. We have scholarship available right now. So please don't hesitate. If you think that you can bring this work to your community, come join us. We want to do this together. We want to do it arm in arm. It's the only way we're going to get through this time in our world, in our country, is arm in arm together. And we can't wait to do it with you. So thank you again. Nallely, let me give you last thoughts and last words, and then we'll say goodbye.
Thank you. I just want to thank everyone for being here today, for watching, if you're watching later. And I just want to say and end this webinar with we are more than survivors. We are more than the labels that we have over us. And we may not have all the answers right now or all the ways to fix what's happening out there in the world, but our heart and our mission here at GPS is to keep fighting for my community, for this beautiful community, for diversity, for every single identity represented in this community by creating opportunities and spaces to heal, spaces where we can receive support in our language that is adapted into our culture. So I can't wait to see you all in our trainings or in our groups. And thank you all for being here. We're going to keep fighting. We're not giving up here. Thank you.